Good evening, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, children, adults, everyone around the world, wherever you might be right now at this very second, you are listening to the NECA King. Well, hopefully you're watching the NECA King, because tonight we're in the halls of the NECA King. And much like the band that we're talking about tonight, this is an audio-visual experience. You know, only the first few NECA King videos were just me talking in front of a box of toys. I very quickly took to editing things in CapCut and making them nice and spazzy for you. It was kind of an insult to me if you don't actually sit down and watch these things and pay very close attention to everything that I say, because paying attention to me is the most important thing in life. Remember that, kids. So tonight we are talking about Pink Floyd. And Pink Floyd can be a lot of things to a lot of people. Pink Floyd can be that band that plays Wish You Were Here and Money on the top 40 radio station. Pink Floyd can be a trite expression of rock and roll, grandpa rock, boomer rock. It can be something that you like the early stuff of because it was really experimental, but not really the later stuff because that guy can really, I only like the Sid Barrett stuff. You know, if you like the fucking Chug Dicks, that's probably your opinion. And then there's somebody like me who was so thoroughly moved by like the entirety of Pink Floyd's catalog that it literally changed the way I played music. All of these acts that we're checking out and in the halls of the NECA King have been deeply influential to me. Katie Wells, Kanye West, tonight's Pink Floyd. Next week's going to finally be the fabled Michael Jackson episode. Right on the cusp of the summer solstice. All these, you know, I mean, mundane pop acts completely changed the way I looked at music. And, you know, when I discovered Pink Floyd, I was going through like my heavy metal stage. I was listening to a lot of Ozzy, Black Sabbath, Metallica, Iron Maiden, that kind of stuff. And I really like punk stuff too. I like the Misfits and the Ramones and G.G. Allin and a lot of local punk bands and punk ska bands from my area. And that was kind of primarily the rock and roll that I was into. But it only took a couple of experiences with Pink Floyd to... I literally sold my Flying V and bought myself a Stratocaster. So it's election day 2004, and I am fresh off of voting for John Kerry because I was stupid and young and thought that he was actually going to try to end the Iraq War. Little did I know that motherfucker would have pressed it just as hard. Anyway, side note, I remember going to vote, and then I went over to my buddy's apartment, which was like a party apartment. You know what I mean? It was where, well, it started off where all our friends hung out, and then all these scumbags from the college started hanging out there, and then a lot of hard drugs started getting done, and it was getting a little fucking sketchy. But I went there, and there was some mushrooms around, okay? And I had a little bit of money in my pocket, okay? Because I had a job, and hey, what are you gonna do? So they were watching this right here, Pink Floyd Live at Pompeii. I got it up on here, the VHS, and that's the director's cut DVD. And this fucking thing, and I know part of it was the mushrooms, okay? I know part of it was the mushrooms. But also, it wasn't just the mushrooms, because I took this video and I made a lot of people watch it in my life. In fact, I think I made Sean watch this. I made all my friends watch this. And I think a lot of them agreed that it was strange and experimental, but a very powerful piece of music and a very powerful live performance and very powerful music video. They basically are playing in an abandoned, not abandoned, but I guess everything in Pompeii is abandoned now, right? An abandoned amphitheater in the ruins of Pompeii. And it's just them there and the video crew documenting it. And then it cuts away to like staged stuff of them seemingly recording Dark Side of the Moon and you know, there's some like green screen footage, or I guess back then it wasn't green screen, it was some other effect, but it was like them playing in front of stars and backgrounds and stuff. And then it was all updated in the director's cut with like really shitty CGI but the director's cut has a lot more interviews and stuff, and it's just the band at Abbey Road talking about their creative process and what it's like to be a musician, and moving in between these eras of 1960s, you know, free concert in Hyde Park, drop acid and feel at one with the grass type thing, and then, like, you know, as they moved into the Dark Side of the Moon era, they were becoming more coherent. They started to have maybe not a message, but their music had messages in it. Their music was starting to become about things. Roger Waters was starting to basically take the creative reins of the lyrical side of things, and also the conceptual side of things, just sort of like forming the albums into stories or operatic, thematic, big things. It wasn't just a string of experimental songs or a few hits like the early Syd Barrett stuff is all, I've got a bike, you can ride it if you like, and fucking... It's very like British pop, top of the pops kind of shit. And quite frankly, I mean, even though it was, you know, Syd Barrett was an experimental nut, that was very limiting for them. And they had to go through this other phase. We'll get to that in a minute. But Live at Pompeii blew me the fuck away. And it made me think differently about what it was to be a musician and make music, and to not box yourself so deeply into the convention of genre. Like, I was really into punk and metal at the time, and that's what I wanted to make. That's the music that I wanted to make. And these guys let me understand that you can just go, you can branch off into any direction that you want. Any direction, especially if you're doing demos in the studio. You can do what the fuck, you can make space sounds for an hour, and it doesn't matter. As long as when you get to the finished product, it's cogent in some way. And that's what they became masters of. So I really became deeply influenced by Pink Floyd. David Gilmour influenced my guitar playing to the point where it was like, you know, we were a heavy metal band in Boston. We called the Inevitable Zombie Apocalypse, but my soloing was always very David Gilmour-esque. And, you know, there's the man over there on his solo album. But anyway, so let's go through this record collection. And I actually obviously have a lot of doubles up here. We'll go through chronologically all the ones that I have here. So this is A Nice Pair. This is a combination album. It's a double LP of their first two albums, Piper at the Gates of Dawn and A Saucer Full of Secrets. And I think it's missing a couple of tracks. But I gotta tell you, they're not my favorite fucking Pink Floyd albums anyway. And I'm not the kind of collector that's like, oh, I need the original pressing of Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Like, maybe when I'm 65 and retired and the kids are grown, I'll go back and mop up all that shit. But I got the music here, and that's what matters, you know what I mean? And I really like this presentation, A Nice Pair. They have all kinds of visual puns and stuff on here. Obviously the sticker's ripped off. It's not a great copy, but again, that's not the kind of collector I am. I'm not like a pristine copy collector. I just want to hear the fucking music. So that's the first two albums all together on one. I am missing a few of these. Generally I'm missing a few overall. I'd say I'm about 8 Pink Floyd records away from having like their full catalog. Obviously, you know, they got the David Gilmour solo over here. I'll put that back in the... Now that I'm going to be moving through, I'll put that in chronologically where that ends up. But, so now we have the second album, which is Uma Guma. And, well, the second album that I have. I'm pretty sure they had one in between. No, they didn't, because Syd Barrett went nuts during Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and Uma Guma was the album where they all, like, experimented. It's half a live album and half an album of them each taking a side and just experimenting and doing crazy stuff. And it's got cool stuff on it, but it's a very experimental album, a very mushroom type album. This album, more than a lot of them, other than, like, this album and Live at Pompeii kind of exemplify my mushroom taking days back in the day when I was a younger man. But it's a cool album. It's an interesting album, but you should be less lucid when you listen to it. Atom Heart Mother. Yeah, once again, I'm missing a couple. I'm missing Obscured by the Clouds and More. It's one called More. It's like a soundtrack to a movie called Zabrowski Point or something. But this is where we pick up again, Atom Heart Mother. I've got a Spanish pressing of it here. Estadio. So this album is like, they're getting into the more coherent stuff, but it's still very experimental. The track itself, Atom Heart Mother, is nuts. This whole album is kind of nuts.
You want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Some people have told me that they appreciate it more than metal, but I don't know about that. It's definitely them moving into more coherent stuff. Relics was an album that they put out in between Atom Heart Mother and metal because the record company realized that they were, they weren't a band that was going to be putting out singles, and they had a big tour in between. So the record company kind of panicked and put out just kind of like a sort of greatest hits It's not really greatest hits. It's more like, it's got some of their hits. Yeah, it's like a combination album of all the early stuff, and it's interesting. But the recordings, some of the recordings of the off-album stuff, is like the Careful with the Axe, that Axe Eugene on here is so. This is metal, which is like, this has Echoes, this has One of These Days, and A Pillow of Winds, and Fearless, and this is the album where they really hate to sound like Patrick Bateman, but they come into their own commercially and artistically. This was the one where you can tell that they were moving in a coherent direction. They had Echoes, which was like 25 minutes long, but it's like surprisingly coherent for a 25-minute long song, to the point where, like, my kid will sit there and listen to it, you know what I mean? And it takes you places. And Andrew Lloyd Webber ripped it off for Phantom of the Opera. And when the press asked Roger Waters if he was ever going to sue Andrew Lloyd Webber for ripping off the main theme of Echoes for the main theme of Phantom of the Opera, Roger Waters said something like, "I like to think that I have better things to do with my life than sue fucking Andrew Lloyd Webber." That's not the exact quote, but he ended it with "fucking Andrew Lloyd Webber," which was great. Just like, you're not even worth my time to sue. Like, rip me off, you fucking hack. You're such a fucking hack. The only thing that anybody's ever going to remember you for is what you ripped off of me. Roger Waters is awesome. So this is like a crown jewel of my Pink Floyd collection. This is an Italian bootleg of Live at Pompeii. It even has some of the interview clips on it. It's not very well put together. The label does not, the track list doesn't match the labeling on the record itself, and I'm pretty sure that the labels on the records don't match the records that they are, but even still, it's captured an amazing sound. They obviously used the remastered director's cut and just basically it sounds like they just pulled the raw audio from that and just pressed it on the vinyl. It fucking sounds amazing. It's one of the most amazing vinyls that I have. And it cost me about $80 20 years ago. So who knows how much you have to pay for it fucking now. So this is the 180 gram reissue pressing that I have of Dark Side of the Moon. Of course, I bought this in Boston because this record, my original copy of it, which is an older copy, probably not an original pressing, but an older copy, was getting all fucked up. I had played it 8 million times, and it was getting very poppy and crackly. So I wanted a new copy of it, and this came with the posters and the stickers and everything. And I remember distinctly, I bought it at Newbury Comics, and I was just in there like window shopping, and I found this and decided that I wanted it. And the fucking hipster piece of shit clerk like literally sneered at me.
What kind of shoes are those? They're Puma. I got them like in Madrid like 5 years ago, and they're still like a favorite item.
He literally sneered at me. He like looked at me with a look of disdain, and I was like, sorry, I'm not buying like Neutral Milk Hotel or fucking Ween, dude. Ring up my fucking Pink Floyd record and don't look me in the eye, because you don't deserve to. I'm the NECA King. You pay tribute. So, again, I love this. This is just like a solid pressing. It's thick, it's nice, and this album deserves to be on a better pressing than just this flimsy little guy back here. Double pressing, sounds loud, sounds great. Wish You Were Here. Actually, I used to have 3 copies of this, but I gave one to a friend. We all know this album. We all love this album. Animals. Something interesting about this pressing, it has... Alright, yeah, I just took a weird take because I got this mixed up with another record. So this is just a different version of it. It's a demonstration, not for sale kind of deal. Is it still recording? I I thought it was a military pressing. I have a couple of records that are like military pressings. It says that demonstration offers. I thought it was this one, but in the cut that I just cut, I looked at both of these extensively and I didn't see the text, but there are ones that say like property of some military base or whatever, and I found that there are entire pressings, lines of pressings of records that are just for like military bases and their libraries and stores and stuff. And I thought that it could be a potential rabbit hole when I'm older to go down. It's just like have a collection of demonstration pressings that were for military libraries only. I thought that this was one of them, but I guess it's not. So this is a David Gilmour solo album. It has some cool stuff on it, and it has a couple of songs that are vaguely reminiscent of things that are on The Wall, because some of the stuff that he put on this album was like stuff that, you know, he kind of like reused some of those album ideas for The Wall. Like the riff for Run Like Hell comes from a song on the David Gilmour solo album. Of course, this is The Wall. We all know The Wall. We all know and love The Wall. These are both old pressings of them. I don't have like a new fancy one. Then you start to get the weird era of Pink Floyd. These are my final two records. This is the final cut, which is basically a Roger Waters solo record with Pink Floyd, the other members of Pink Floyd hanging on and doing as much cocaine as they possibly could. And then the first album without Roger Waters, A Momentary Lapse of Reason. I'm missing the Division Bell and a few others, but basically that's my entire Pink Floyd collection right there. And as I look at it now, I realize like when I stopped collecting Pink Floyd records was about the time. I basically, this would be a full collection if I hadn't gotten into music myself. Like my Black Sabbath collection's pretty complete because I'm not too into the post-Ozzy era of it. My Ozzy collection is pretty darn well complete too, except for a few extra things. But this one kind of stops. Like this one's only half full, and it's because I basically started buying music equipment. You know, I moved to Boston shortly after, the year after I got into Pink Floyd, and I started, you know, playing music down there, and I stopped spending so much money on records and started spending it on my own music. Which, you know, came to nothing, but was an adventure in and of itself. But so as I look at it now, I kind of have like a half-complete Pink Floyd collection. I've got all the stuff from the middle, but like some of the earlier stuff is missing and some of the later stuff is missing. And what I'd like to do is get Division Bell, and I'm pretty sure Delicate Sound of Thunder and Pulse are both on vinyl too. I'd like to get both of those. I'd like to get the Endless River. And then like all their solo stuff too. Like even Nick Mason did solo stuff, the drummer. So I'd like to just have it all, and that's probably the rabbit hole that I'll go back down into when I start collecting records again. It's finishing out my Pink Floyd collection, finishing out my Springsteen collection. You'll see my Springsteen collection on the second season of In the Halls of the NECA King. I'm going to take a little break from doing this for maybe the whole summer, and then I got a whole new season of In the Halls of the NECA King planned. You know, don't count your chickens, but you might hear a little bit of Springsteen. You might hear a little bit of Cash. You might hear, you know, some other things too. We might do some genre nights. But anyway, thank you for stopping by on this episode of In the Halls of the NECA King. Tell me what you think about Pink Floyd in the comments. And, you know, now that I look at it, I see it's kind of a tiny collection for a band that inspired me so deeply. But this was also the age of digital. It was the age of, you know, MP3 players were becoming a thing when I moved to Boston, and I had, you know, all kinds of Pink Floyd on there that I didn't have on record. But it's still a solid little collection, and it shows you a little aspect of, a little corner of my life. But anyway, Zoobox is starting, so I gotta get the hell out of here. Guys, thanks for stopping by, and I will see you next time on In the Halls of the NECA King. Oh, I forgot to say, Tuesday is the last unboxing before Juneteenth. And then on Juneteenth is 1,000 $1,000 shelf. And then on that Friday is the last episode of In the Halls of the NECA King. So next week you got 3 NECA King videos, guys. Guys, stick around. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.